During the camping with the friends, everything was going perfectly. The air was crisp, the stars were out, and everything seemed chill. Little did I know, things were about to get seriously messed up. We found this perfect spot in the woods, set up our tents, cracked open some cold ones, and started swapping stories around the campfire. Classic camping vibes, right? But then, as the fire died down and we were about to hit the hay, we heard it. A low, husky growl coming from the darkness beyond our campsite. At first, we brushed it off as some wild animal, but the growling got louder, closer. That's when the fear started to creep in. We grabbed our flashlights and huddled together, scanning the trees for any sign of movement. Then, out of nowhere, this massive shape lunged out of the shadows, knocking over our cooler and sending cans flying everywhere. I swear, my heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. We scrambled to our feet, trying to make sense of what we were seeing. Turns out, it was this huge bear, all teeth and claws, tearing through our stuff like it was nothing. We knew we had to get out of there, but the bear was blocking our path back to the car. So we did the only thing we could think of. We booked it deeper into the woods, hoping to find some kind of shelter. We stumbled upon this old ranger station, half hidden in the trees. It was run down and abandoned, but it was better than nothing. We closed up ourselves inside, trying to catch our breath and figure out our next move. But then, we started hearing these strange noises outside. Scratching, tapping, like something was trying to get in. We were freaking out, shining our flashlights around, but there was nothing there, just darkness and silence. Hours passed, and the noises didn't stop. We were exhausted, terrified, and completely trapped. That's when we heard it. A voice, soft and sinister, echoing through the darkness. It was saying my name, over and over again, like it was calling out to me. I couldn't explain it, but something about that voice filled me with dread, like I was being watched by something evil. We tried to ignore it, to convince ourselves it was just our imagination running wild, but deep down we knew better. As the night dragged on, the voice grew louder, more insistent. Felt like it was closing in on us, surrounding us from all sides. We were running out of options, running out of hope. Just when we thought things couldn't get any worse, the walls of the ranger station started to shake, like they were being torn apart by some unseen force. We were trapped, helpless, as the world outside descended into chaos. I wish I could tell you that we made it out alive, that we defeated whatever was out there waiting for us in the darkness. But the truth is, I don't know what happened next. All I remember is the overwhelming sense of fear, the feeling of being hunted, of being prey. So, if you ever find yourself out in the woods, alone in the darkness, just remember one thing. Sometimes the scariest things are the ones you can't see coming. And once they've got you in their sights, there's no escaping the terror in the tent. Ever heard of that feeling when your gut stirs like a washing machine on steroids? Yeah, that's exactly how I felt when I decided to hike up that mountain. I mean, who wouldn't? The thrill of the unknown, the chill in the air, and the eerie silence that blankets everything like a thick fog. So, there I was, with nothing but my backpack, some granola bars, and a flashlight that looked like it had seen better days. The sun was starting to dip behind the jagged peaks, casting long shadows that danced in the fading light. But I wasn't worried. Not yet, at least. The trail started off easy enough, just a dirt path winding its way through the trees. But as I climbed higher, the air grew thinner, and the trees started to thin out until there was nothing but rocks and scrub brush. I kept telling myself it was worth it, that the view from the top would be incredible. But deep down, I think I knew I was lying to myself. The first sign that something was off came when I stumbled across a clearing in the trees. It was small, maybe no more than a few feet across, but in the center, there was a pile of rocks stacked on top of each other like some kind of makeshift altar. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease that crept over me and kept moving, but it lingered like a bad smell. As the sun dipped lower and lower, I realized I needed to find a place to set up camp for the night. I found a small clearing near the edge of a cliff and pitched my tent, trying to ignore the way my hands shook as I hammered in the stakes. The darkness crept in fast, swallowing everything in its path until all I could see was the faint glow of my flashlight. I tried to sleep, I really did, but every little sound had me jumping out of my skin, my heart hammering in my chest like a jackhammer. It felt like the forest was alive, whispering secrets that I wasn't meant to hear. And then, just as I was starting to drift off, I heard it, a sound like nothing I had ever heard before. It was low and guttural, echoing through the trees like a warning. I froze, my breath catching in my throat as I strained to listen. But just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped, leaving nothing but the silence in its wake. I lay there for what felt like hours, my eyes wide open and fixed on the roof of my tent. Eventually, exhaustion won out, and I must have drifted off because the next thing I knew, the sun was peeking over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I packed up my camp in record time, eager to put as much distance between me and that clearing as possible. But no matter how fast I walked, it felt like I was going in circles, the trees closing in around me like gnarled fingers. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I stumbled across another clearing. This one was bigger than the last, with a ring of stones arranged in a perfect circle. In the center, there was a hole dug into the earth, the dirt packed down like it had been there for years. I didn't stick around to investigate. I turned on my heel and ran, my feet pounding against the ground as I pushed myself to go faster and faster. But no matter how hard I ran, it felt like I was running in slow motion, like the forest was swallowing me whole. I don't know how long I ran for or how far I went. All I know is that eventually, I stumbled out of the trees and onto the road, my lungs burning and my legs like jelly. I collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath as tears streamed down my face. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget that night or the things I saw in those woods. But one thing's for sure, I'll never go back. Not for all the views in the world. In the summer's I and my friends set up camp in the heart of the mountains. We'd been planning this trip for months. Just us, nature, and a whole lot of adventure. But little did we know, we were about to get more adventure than we bargained for. As we sat around the crackling campfire, swapping stories and roasting marshmallows, the forest around us seemed to come alive with strange noises. Branches creaked, leaves rustled, and every now and then, we'd catch a glimpse of something moving in the shadows. But we laughed it off, blaming it on our overactive imaginations and the eerie atmosphere of the wilderness. But as the night wore on, things took a turn for the worse. The fire started to die down, leaving us shrouded in darkness. We heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate footsteps, circling our campsite. Panic started to bubble up inside me, but I tried to play it cool for the sake of my friends. "We should probably call it a night," I suggested, my voice cracking slightly. "Get some sleep before we hit the trails tomorrow." But my friends weren't buying it. They could sense something was off, just like I could. So we huddled together in our tents, clutching our flashlights like lifelines, and waited for morning to come. But morning brought no relief. Instead, it brought a thick blanket of fog that swallowed the mountains whole. We couldn't see more than a few feet in front of us, and the eeriness of our surroundings only intensified. It felt like we were walking through a nightmare, with every step leading us deeper into the unknown. We tried to stick to the trail, but it was easy to get disoriented in the fog. Trees loomed out of the mist like ghostly sentinels, and strange shapes seemed to dance just beyond our line of sight. I could feel the tension mounting between us, each of us silently grappling with our own fears and doubts. And then, just when we thought things couldn't get any worse, we stumbled upon an old abandoned cabin hidden deep in the woods. It looked like something out of a horror movie, all rotting wood and broken windows, with a sense of malevolence hanging in the air. But it was the only shelter we could find, so we reluctantly stepped inside. The interior was even worse than the exterior. The air was thick with dust and decay, and the floorboards creaked ominously beneath our feet. But we were desperate, so we huddled together in the main room, trying to block out the sense of dread that seemed to seep from every corner. As night fell once again, We huddled together for warmth, the darkness pressing in around us like a physical weight. And that's when we heard it, a low, guttural growl echoing through the cabin. We froze, our hearts pounding in our chests as the sound grew louder and closer. Without a word, we grabbed our things and bolted for the door, the fear lending us speed we didn't know we had. We stumbled out into the fog, gasping for breath, but the growling was still there, hot on our heels. We ran blindly through the trees, branches tearing at our clothes and rocks cutting into our feet. But no matter how fast we ran, the growling seemed to follow us, growing louder and more ferocious with each passing moment. Just when we thought we couldn't run anymore, we burst out of the fog and into the clearing where we'd set up camp. The relief was overwhelming, but it was short-lived, because waiting for us in the clearing was something I'll never forget. A pair of glowing eyes, burning like hot coals in the darkness. We didn't stop to see what it was. We didn't stop to catch our breath. We just ran, fueled by pure terror and the instinct to survive. And as we fled into the night, the howls of whatever was chasing us echoed through the mountains, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked in the unknown.